The sleek Confederation research vessel cut through the darkness of space, its engines humming with power as it emerged from hyperspace. The stars of the Sol system greeted Captain Tahoe and his crew, tiny points of light against the vast emptiness. Tahoe stood tall on the bridge, his uniform crisp and his posture perfect as befitted a senior officer of the Galactic Confederation. Final approach to the third planet, Captain, reported Navigator Gina, her voice calm and professional. Exactly as our star charts predicted. Tahoe nodded, studying the blue-green world growing larger on the main view screen. Earth, the locals called it. The Confederation had been steadily mapping this sector for decades, cataloging planets with potential for intelligent life. According to their estimates, this world should host primitives, perhaps early industrial civilization at most. Begin standard observation protocol, Tahoe ordered. Keep our position beyond their moon. We don't want to frighten the natives if they have basic astronomical capabilities. Science Officer Juwu, seated at her complex array of instruments, began the standard planetary scan. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency across the glowing panels. The bridge crew waited in comfortable silence, expecting nothing unusual from this routine mission. Then Juwu gasped. "Captain," she said, her voice suddenly tense. "Initial scans show. This can't be right." Her fingers flew faster over the controls, recalibrating the sensors. "I'm detecting multiple orbital stations, advanced satellite networks, power signatures consistent with fusion technology." Tahoe frowned and moved to her station. "That's impossible. Our last probe data suggested they had barely discovered electricity." "The data is clear, sir," Juwu insisted, pointing to her readings. "And there's more. They're actively tracking us. Their detection systems have already pinpointed our location." The bridge fell silent. First contact protocols were strict. The Confederation never revealed themselves to species unprepared for the knowledge of alien life. But it seemed these humans had already spotted them, despite the vessel's advanced cloaking technology. "Full sensor sweep," Tahoe ordered. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The results came in quickly, each new piece of information more surprising than the last. Earth's technology was advanced, not quite at Confederation standards, but remarkably close. They had established bases on their moon and neighboring planets. Their computer systems, while different in design philosophy, showed sophisticated understanding of quantum principles. "Sir," called Communications Officer Dongo, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet." Tahoe straightened his uniform, suddenly keenly aware of his role in what had just become a historic moment. "Put it through." The message that appeared on their screens was simple and direct, displayed in perfect galactic standard script. "Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you." "How is this possible?" whispered Gina. "They shouldn't even know galactic standard exists, let alone be able to transmit in it." Tahoe made a quick decision. "Prepare the diplomatic shuttle. Alert Ambassador Minho that his services will be required ahead of schedule." Within hours, the Confederation's diplomatic team had made contact with Earth's leaders. Ambassador Minho, a veteran of 17 first contacts, had prepared for any reaction: fear, worship, aggression. Instead, he found himself greeted with handshakes, smiles, and calm questions about the journey. "We've been watching your approach for several days," explained the human representative, showing Minho to a comfortable seat in a simple but elegant meeting room. "We hoped you would choose to make contact rather than simply observe." Minho struggled to hide his surprise. "Your technology is more advanced than we anticipated." The human smiled. "We've made rapid progress in recent decades. Perhaps we learn quickly." That was an understatement, Minho realized as the initial meetings progressed. The humans absorbed new concepts with remarkable speed. They asked insightful questions about Confederation technology, politics, and biology. They shared their own scientific knowledge freely, without the hesitation most newly contacted species showed. Something about these humans was different. They displayed none of the religious crisis, cultural shock, or social upheaval that typically accompanied first contact. It was as if they had always expected to meet aliens, had prepared for it culturally and psychologically for generations. While Minho handled the diplomatic talks, Dr. Do-hyun, the expedition's xenobiologist, requested samples of human genetic material for study, a standard procedure during first contact. The humans agreed readily, providing blood samples, tissue cultures, and complete genome mappings. In his laboratory aboard the Confederation vessel, Do-hyun made a startling discovery. He triple-checked his results before requesting a private meeting with Captain Taho and Ambassador Minho. "Human DNA contains sequences I've never seen before," he explained, displaying complex molecular structures on the lab's holographic projector. "At first, I thought they might be random mutations or evolutionary dead ends, what humans themselves call junk DNA, but that's not it at all." He zoomed in on specific segments. "These are deliberately structured information packets embedded within their genetic code. They appear dormant, inactive, but they're there, waiting for something." Minho leaned forward. "Are you suggesting artificial genetic modification?" "I'm suggesting something far more complex," Do-hyun replied. "These sequences don't match any known genetic engineering techniques. They're too elegant, too seamlessly integrated. This is beyond current Confederation capabilities." Meanwhile, young archaeologist Jae-hyun had been granted permission to visit several of Earth's most famous historical sites. What began as scientific curiosity quickly became professional excitement as he noticed strange similarities between human artifacts and mysterious findings from his previous excavations. The distinctive curve of Egyptian hieroglyphs reminded him of inscriptions found on ruins in the Proxima system. The precise astronomical alignments of Stonehenge matched patterns seen in ancient structures on Kepler 186. Even the mathematical proportions of certain human temples seemed to follow principles found in the oldest ruins known to the Confederation, structures that predated all known civilizations. Jae-hyun carefully documented each correlation, each strange coincidence. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Somehow, Earth's ancient cultures shared design elements with mysterious ruins scattered across the galaxy. As the Confederation team compared notes in a secure meeting room, a troubling question emerged. Were these humans exactly what they appeared to be? Or was there some deeper mystery waiting to be uncovered about humanity's true place in the galactic order? Captain Taho looked around at his unsettled crew. "Continue your research, but keep your findings confidential for now. Something unusual is happening here, and I want answers before we make any reports to Confederation headquarters." What had begun as a routine cataloging mission had become something far more intriguing and potentially universe-changing. The humans of Earth had many secrets, and the Confederation team was just beginning to uncover them. Jae-hyun spread his findings across the large conference table. His hands moved quickly as he arranged photographs, 3D scans, and holographic projections showing ancient structures from Earth and similar ruins found on distant worlds. Around the table sat a mix of human and Confederation researchers, all leaning forward with interest. "Look here," Jae-hyun said, pointing to the distinctive angular patterns carved into an Egyptian obelisk. He then shifted his finger to a hologram showing nearly identical markings on stone columns discovered on a planet 80 light-years from Earth. The same design principles appear in structures separated by impossible distances. Dr. Haeji, a respected human archaeologist with short black hair and intense eyes, nodded as she studied the evidence. Unlike her colleagues who had initially dismissed Jae-hyun's theories, she saw the connections immediately. "It goes beyond simple shapes that any civilization might discover," she added, standing to point at another comparison. "These are specific mathematical ratios and astronomical alignments that appear across multiple worlds. The odds against random coincidence are astronomical." Captain Taho watched from the back of the room, his arms crossed. What had begun as a routine mission had evolved into something far more significant. He had already sent a secure message to Confederation headquarters requesting additional research support, but had carefully omitted the most startling theories being discussed by his team. "I propose a joint research initiative," Jae-in suggested, looking around the table. "We need to combine our knowledge if we want to understand what these connections mean." Within days, the initiative was formed. Human and alien specialists worked side by side, examining evidence and sharing insights that neither group could have developed alone. Professor Hyuno, a human linguist with decades of experience studying Earth's earliest writing systems, brought clay tablets, papyrus scrolls, and stone inscriptions from civilizations long vanished from Earth. His Confederation counterpart, Sung-ho, contributed his extensive knowledge of what scholars call the Elder Script, mysterious written fragments found on ancient ruins across dozens of worlds. For years, Confederation archaeologists had struggled to decipher these markings, believing them to be left by some vanished spacefaring species from the galaxy's distant past. The two linguists worked long hours in a makeshift laboratory, their desks covered with texts and translation attempts. After weeks of frustration, they made their first breakthrough late one night when most of the team had already retired to their quarters. "Look at this," Junho said, sliding a tablet across the desk to Sung-ho. "If we adjust the orientation of your Elder Script fragments and compare them to these Proto-Sumerian symbols." Sung-ho's eyes widened as he overlaid the samples on his digital workspace. "The patterns match," he whispered. "They're not identical, but they clearly share a common root structure, almost as if one evolved from the other," Junho finished, his voice equally quiet with the weight of their discovery. The linguistic connection spurred the team to intensify their search for physical evidence. Dr. Haiji led a small group to Egypt, where ground-penetrating radar had revealed an anomaly beneath the Great Sphinx that had somehow been missed by previous surveys. Using advanced Confederation cutting tools that left no trace of their work, they carefully created an opening into a sealed chamber that had remained untouched for millennia. What they found inside left even the most skeptical team members speechless. The walls were covered with detailed star charts showing solar systems thousands of light years from Earth, systems that the Confederation had only recently mapped with their advanced technology. At the center of the chamber stood a collection of devices unlike anything seen in modern human civilization. Haiji approached one of the machines cautiously. It was shaped like a sphere with intricate patterns etched across its metallic surface. When she reached out and touched it, the sphere hummed to life, glowing with a soft blue light. When Sung-ho tried to activate it afterward, the device remained dormant. "It only responds to human touch," Haiji said, her voice filled with wonder. The team worked carefully, documenting everything and removing select artifacts for analysis aboard the Confederation vessel, where more advanced scientific equipment was available. Sung-ho supervised the testing of a small metallic component, running it through every scan and analysis the ship's laboratory could perform. "These results can't be right," he muttered, running the tests again. When the same impossible data appeared, he called the entire research team together. "These artifacts are millions of years old," Sung-ho announced, his voice trembling slightly. "Far older than human civilization is supposed to be." He displayed the test results on the main screen. "The quantum decay patterns are unmistakable. These objects were manufactured at least 5 million years ago." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Human history, as currently understood, only stretched back a few thousand years, with anatomically modern humans evolving perhaps 300,000 years ago. Nothing in the accepted scientific record suggested that humans could have created advanced technology millions of years in the past. "Could they have been left by some other species?" asked Captain Taiyo, breaking the silence. Haiji shook her head. "The devices respond only to human DNA. And look at this." She displayed images of handprints embedded in some of the artifacts. Handprints that perfectly matched modern human proportions. Jae-in paced the room, his mind racing with possibilities. What if everything we thought we knew about human history is wrong? What if humans didn't evolve on Earth at all? Dr. Doyun, who had been quietly analyzing his genetic findings, finally spoke up. My research supports that possibility. The dormant sequences I found in human DNA contain information packets that appear to be artificial in origin. They could be some form of stored knowledge or capabilities, deliberately switched off but preserved within the genome. The team worked through the night, connecting evidence from multiple disciplines. By morning, a radical new theory had emerged, one so shocking that they debated whether to share it even with their own leaders. "We need more proof," Captain Tahoe insisted. "These conclusions would reshape our understanding of galactic history." Haiji nodded in agreement but couldn't hide her excitement. "If we're right, then humanity isn't just another emerging species joining the galactic community." She looked around at her colleagues, both human and alien. Humans might be the mysterious elder species that everyone has been searching for all along. As the sun rose over Earth, casting golden light through the windows of their research center, the team prepared to expand their investigation. Whatever the truth might be, they were on the verge of a discovery that would change everything the Confederation thought it knew about the history of life in the galaxy. The Grand Council chamber fell silent as the research team finished setting up their presentation equipment. On one side of the long table sat the highest officials of Earth's united government. On the other side were the senior representatives of the Galactic Confederation. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Captain Tahoe stood at attention near the wall, watching as Ambassador Minho tried to calm the growing whispers. This meeting had been difficult to arrange. Many Confederation officials had argued against sharing unconfirmed findings of such significance, while several human leaders had expressed concern about potential panic if the information became public. Jae-hyun stepped forward first, his normally casual demeanor replaced by professional seriousness. The young archaeologist had barely slept in weeks, working tirelessly to verify every piece of evidence. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," he began, activating the holographic display. Above the table appeared three-dimensional images of ancient structures, pyramids from Earth alongside similar buildings from worlds hundreds of light-years away. "What we are about to share will sound impossible, but we have confirmed our findings through multiple methods." Haiji joined him, adding her archaeological expertise to the presentation. She pointed to specific architectural elements that appeared across different sites. "These similarities are not coincidental," she explained. "The mathematical principles, the astronomical alignments, even the construction techniques are identical across worlds that had no contact with each other." A Confederation counselor raised his hand. "Could these not simply be universal principles that any advanced civilization might discover?" "We considered that possibility," Jae-hyun replied. "But then we found this." He changed the display to show the sealed chamber beneath the Sphinx. This hidden room contained technology millions of years old, showing star maps of systems the Confederation has only recently explored. Haiji continued, "These devices respond only to human DNA patterns. They were made by humans, for humans, long before our recorded history began." The room erupted in confused questions. The human delegation looked particularly shaken. Earth's Prime Minister raised her hand for silence. "Are you suggesting our archaeological timeline is wrong? That human civilization is millions of years old instead of thousands." "No," Jae-hyun said, his voice steady. "We're suggesting something far more significant." He paused, looking at his team members for support. "The evidence points to one conclusion. Humans are not native to Earth." The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Several counselors began to protest, but Jae-hyun continued, raising his voice slightly. "We believe humanity once controlled a vast interstellar empire," he explained, showing new images of ruins from across the galaxy. "The ancient structures found throughout Confederation space aren't from a mysterious vanished race that no one could identify. They're human ruins. Your people built them." The human delegation sat in stunned silence. A Confederation scientist shook his head in disbelief. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records, evolutionary history." Dr. Do-hyun stepped forward, bringing up genetic diagrams on the display. That evolutionary history was engineered, he said quietly, created deliberately to hide the truth. He highlighted specific DNA strands that glowed blue in the projection. These sequences that scientists have long called junk DNA are actually compressed information packets. They contain knowledge, memories, even abilities, all placed in dormancy, but carefully preserved for future restoration. Haiji moved to the center of the room. Her voice grew stronger as she explained their most startling theory. Based on our findings, we believe that approximately 5 million years ago, humanity faced a threat of unimaginable power. Rather than face extinction, our ancestors implemented a desperate plan. She brought up a timeline on the display. They retreated to Earth, a planet they had previously seeded with basic life forms during their empire's expansion. Here, they deliberately devolved their technology and biology and erased all knowledge of their past. Why would they do such a thing? Asked the Confederation High Counselor, his voice barely above a whisper. Survival, Jae-yun answered simply. We found fragments of records suggesting this enemy could detect advanced technology and high-level consciousness. By reducing themselves to primitive beings, humans became invisible. The council room erupted again, with questions flying from all sides. Captain Tahoe watched the faces of the human representatives, some showing disbelief, others fear, and a few with expressions that almost looked like relief, as if a lifetime of questions were finally being answered. Earth's Defense Secretary stood up, her face pale. If what you're saying is true, where is this enemy now? Are we still in danger? We don't know, admitted Haiji. The records are incomplete, but we found no evidence that this threat still exists in our galaxy. It's possible it moved on, or no longer exists at all. Dr. Doyun brought up new genetic diagrams. What we do know is that the dormant sequences in human DNA appear to be designed to reactivate gradually. We believe this was intended as a safeguard. If the threat was truly gone, humans would slowly regain their former knowledge and abilities without drawing attention too quickly. A human scientist from the delegation asked, "Are you suggesting this reactivation is happening now?" Yes, Doyun nodded. The evidence suggests the process began accelerating approximately 300 years ago, coinciding with humanity's sudden technological advancement. What took other species thousands of years to develop, humans achieved in mere centuries. The Prime Minister of Earth looked shaken. So our rapid progress, our intuitive understanding of advanced concepts, these aren't just human ingenuity. They are human ingenuity, Haiji said with a small smile. Just not in the way you thought. You're remembering, not learning. Ambassador Minho finally spoke, addressing both delegations. We understand this information is overwhelming. We've prepared detailed reports with all our evidence for your review, but we felt it critical to share our findings immediately. As the meeting continued into the night, small groups formed around the room, discussing the implications in hushed tones. Captain Teho overheard a conversation between two human leaders. Could it be true? One whispered, that we're not who we thought we were. I don't know, the other replied. But it would explain so much about us. Our constant looking to the stars, our strange dreams, our feeling that we somehow don't quite belong here despite being born on this world. As dawn approached, the council finally adjourned. No official announcements would be made until further verification, but everyone in the room knew that the relationship between humanity and the Confederation had fundamentally changed. Humans were not newcomers to the galactic stage. They were its original architects, returning after a long absence. Humanity had hidden their true nature even from themselves, and now, whether they were ready or not, the truth was beginning to emerge. Despite efforts to control the information, news of humanity's true origins spread across Earth with remarkable speed. Government leaders had hoped to release the findings gradually, with careful explanation and context, but in the age of global communication networks, such secrets rarely remained contained. Ji-hoon sat up in bed, his heart racing. The dreams had come again, more vivid than before. He saw himself standing on the bridge of an enormous vessel, stars streaking past viewports that stretched from floor to ceiling. In the dream, his hands moved with confidence across control panels that somehow made perfect sense to him, despite their alien design. The 22-year-old history student had never studied engineering or physics. His academic interests had always centered on ancient civilizations. Yet when he got out of bed and sat at his desk, his hands began sketching complex technical diagrams without conscious thought. By evening, he had constructed a small device from parts salvaged from household electronics. When activated, it created a localized gravitational field that caused pencils and small objects to float above his desk. Ji-hoon stared at his creation, both fascinated and frightened. He had no idea how he had built it or how it worked. He was not alone. Across the planet, thousands of humans reported similar experiences. In a hospital in Seoul, Dr. Yoon-ha looked at bacterial cultures under her microscope and suddenly understood the mechanism behind a drug-resistant infection that had baffled medical researchers for decades. The solution came to her like a memory, as if she had known it long ago and was only now remembering. "It's not a new approach," she tried to explain to her astonished colleagues. "We used to treat similar pathogens this way." Before, she trailed off, unable to explain how she knew this information or what before meant. At research centers hastily established around the world, scientists worked to document and understand these emerging abilities. Dr. Do-yeon confirmed what he had suspected. The dormant sections of human DNA were activating, releasing ancient knowledge stored within the genetic code itself. "It appears the discovery of the truth has accelerated the process," he explained to a joint Human Confederation science team. "The knowledge that humans are the elder species seems to have triggered a cascade effect in the dormant genetic material." Not all the awakenings were technological. A farmer in a remote village reported being able to communicate with animals. A teacher found she could sense the emotions of her students without words. A firefighter discovered he could control flames with his mind. As reports flooded in from around the globe, humanity began to realize they were becoming something both new and ancient, returning to abilities their ancestors had once possessed. Ambassador Minho watched these developments with growing concern, not for what humanity was becoming, but for how some elements of the Confederation were reacting. "The Security Council is split," his aide informed him. "Many see this as a wonderful reunification with the elder founders of galactic civilization. But others," she hesitated, "others see a threat," Minho finished. He had spent enough time in Confederation politics to recognize the signs of military preparation. "Who leads the opposition?" "Admiral Kyu," she answered. "He's been gathering support among the more cautious species." Admiral Kyu had built his career on identifying and neutralizing threats to Confederation security. From his perspective, the sudden reemergence of an ancient, powerful species represented the greatest potential danger in recorded history. If humans truly were this elder species, then they once held power beyond our comprehension, he argued in closed Security Council sessions. "We cannot risk their full restoration. What if they decide to reclaim their empire? What if they view us as inferior species to be controlled or eliminated?" While Kyu did not have unanimous support, he had enough influence to assemble a battle fleet at the edge of the Sol system. Officially, the vessels were there for observation and security purposes. Unofficially, their mission was clear: neutralize the human threat before it fully awakened. Minho worked tirelessly through diplomatic channels, trying to prevent the looming conflict. "Humanity has shown no signs of aggression," he insisted in emergency sessions. "They are as surprised by these developments as we are." But fear proved more powerful than reason. When a human research vessel ventured beyond Mars to study unusual radiation patterns, Admiral Kyu gave the order that would mark a turning point in galactic history. "Target their propulsion systems," he commanded. "Disable the vessel. We need to demonstrate our resolve." The lead Confederation warship fired energy weapons across the bow of the small research ship. It was intended as a warning, a show of force rather than a direct attack. But to frightened humans tracking the confrontation from Earth, it appeared as an act of aggression against an unarmed scientific vessel. What happened next defied explanation by conventional physics. All across Earth, thousands of awakened humans felt the moment of crisis as if it were occurring in their own minds. Without coordination or planning, they responded as one. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kiwu watched in disbelief as his weapons systems suddenly went offline. "Engineering report," he demanded. "All systems show functional, Admiral," came the confused response. "But weapons will not fire. Drive systems are not responding to commands." Across the entire battle fleet, ships found themselves immobilized. Not damaged, not attacked, simply unable to continue hostile actions. Communication systems remained operational, but instead of carrying the orders of officers, they broadcast a simple message to every screen and speaker. "We wish no harm. We remember the cost of war." In his office on Earth, Ji-hoon looked up from his desk, his eyes unfocused as if seeing something far away. He had no idea how he knew what was happening in space or how he was contributing to the response. He simply understood, on some deep level, that he was part of something much larger than himself, a collective memory awakening after millions of years of slumber. Dr. Yunga felt it too, as did countless others. Across the planet, humans experienced a moment of connection with each other and with their ancient heritage. They remembered fragments of a civilization that had once spanned the stars, and they remembered why that civilization had chosen to forget. Admiral Kiwu stared at the message repeating on his screen. His tactical officer reported that they could re-establish control of their systems by performing a complete restart, but it would take hours. By then, the moment for surprise action would be lost. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They're requesting to speak with you directly." Kiwu hesitated, then nodded. The screen changed to show a simple room where several humans sat at a round table. They were not government officials or military leaders, but ordinary people, a student, a doctor, a teacher, a farmer, who had awakened to their heritage. "Admiral Kiwu," Ji-hoon spoke first, his voice calm despite his youth. "We understand your concerns, but we ask you to understand us as well. We did not choose to forget our past, but having remembered it, we now understand why our ancestors made that choice. And what choice will you make now?" Kiwu asked, his voice tense. Ji-hoon looked at his companions, then back at the screen. "The same choice we made long ago. Peace, knowledge, coexistence. We have remembered much, Admiral, but most of all, we have remembered the cost of conflict." 6 months after the standoff at the edge of the solar system, representatives from all Confederation worlds gathered on Earth for an unprecedented summit. The meeting place was not a grand government building or military headquarters, but a simple meadow surrounded by ancient trees. The location had been chosen by the humans who had most fully awakened to their ancestral memories. Elder Suho walked slowly to the center of the gathering. Once a quiet librarian, he had been among the first to fully access the genetic memories stored in his DNA. His hair had turned white in the process, as if the weight of millions of years of history had physically marked him. Despite his new status, he wore simple clothes and carried himself with humble dignity. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the meadow without technological help. "Today, we wish to share the final truth about our past and our future." The assembled delegates fell silent, alien and human alike waiting for revelations that would reshape their understanding of the galaxy. Earth was indeed a sanctuary, Suho began, a place where the once mighty human species preserved itself during a cosmic dark age. Our civilization hadn't simply been advanced. We were the first, the originators who seeded life throughout this galaxy, who shepherded younger species, and who established the foundations of what would eventually become the Galactic Confederation. Murmurs spread through the crowd as translators conveyed his words to various species. Some delegates looked skeptical, others awed. Admiral Kiwu, who had been invited despite his earlier actions, watched with narrowed eyes. "We have recovered the records of our beginning," Suho continued. "Humans evolved on Earth naturally, but far earlier than current science suggests. Over millions of years, we developed spaceflight and expanded across the stars when most planets in the galaxy were still barren rocks." He gestured to the sky. "We learned to create life, adapting Earth templates to new worlds. We built the first faster-than-light drives. We established outposts that would one day become the homeworlds of many species represented here today." A bold delegate from one of the newer Confederation members called out, "If you were so powerful, why did you abandon everything? What could threaten beings of such advancement?" Suho's expression grew solemn. "We encountered something from beyond our galaxy, a force that fed on advanced consciousness and technology. It did not communicate or negotiate. It simply consumed. When we fought, it grew stronger. When we hid, it hunted us." The meadow grew utterly silent. In desperation, our ancestors made two final decisions. First, they stored all their knowledge and technology in hidden vaults throughout the galaxy, protected by puzzles and guardians that would only yield to future humans when they were ready. Second, they retreated to Earth, our original home. Suho closed his eyes briefly, accessing painful memories that were not his own yet lived within him. Here, they did something that had never been attempted. They deliberately devolved themselves, reversing millions of years of advancement. They erased their own knowledge and technology, keeping only compressed memory fragments hidden in their DNA. "But why?" asked Ambassador Minho, who had worked tirelessly for peace since the crisis began. "We chose to forget," Suho explained gently. "Not just because we were hunted, but because we needed to rediscover ourselves, to remember what it means to be vulnerable, to struggle, to hope. Our civilization had reached such heights that we had lost connection with our foundations. The enemy forced us to retreat, but the retreat gave us a chance to begin again, to rebuild our civilization on stronger moral and ethical grounds." A young human woman stepped forward, a physicist who had recently developed a revolutionary energy source based on her awakened memories. "The evidence suggests the extragalactic threat left this region of space long ago, perhaps believing it had eliminated all advanced life. Our ancestors' plan worked." Over the following weeks, the summit continued as humans shared more of their recovered knowledge. They offered technological advancements, but cautiously, emphasizing cooperation rather than domination. Many elder humans, as they came to be known, counseled patience and careful development rather than rapid deployment of their most advanced rediscoveries. Admiral Kiwu, after several days of observation, requested a private meeting with Elder Suho. The two walked together beneath flowering trees. "I must ask," Kiwu said finally, "now that humans are awakening to their former power, what do you intend to do with the Confederation? Will you reclaim leadership by right of being the founders?" Suho smiled gently. "Leadership is earned, Admiral, not inherited. We have been away too long to simply return and take control. Instead, we wish to rejoin as equals, bringing what wisdom we can offer while learning from all that has developed in our absence." The integration was not immediate but evolved gradually over the following years. Humans shared their reawakening knowledge while maintaining the perspective their time on Earth had given them. The collective experience of starting over as a vulnerable species had instilled humility and patience that their ancestors had perhaps lacked. The Confederation transformed as humanity helped usher in a new era of cooperation. Ancient vaults were opened, revealing technologies that had been hidden for millions of years. But alongside these technological wonders came philosophical and ethical frameworks that helped guide their implementation. 1 year after the summit, the first new human starship prepared for its maiden voyage. Built with a combination of recovered Elder technology and modern Confederation engineering, it represented a bridge between past and future. Jaehyun and Haiji stood on the observation deck, watching Earth recede below them. Their research partnership had evolved into something deeper during the tumultuous months of discovery and revelation. "It's strange," Jae-hyun said quietly. All those years I spent digging through ruins across the galaxy, trying to piece together the story of the mysterious elder species that seemed to have influenced everything. We were all looking for our creators, Haiji agreed. All those ruins, all those fragments of the past, we were searching for the elder species that began everything. Jae-hyun nodded, his eyes reflecting the stars now visible as the ship cleared Earth's atmosphere. And all along we were searching for ourselves. Haiji smiled, watching the stars stretch into brilliant streaks as the ship accelerated beyond light speed. The vessel carried representatives from every Confederation world, journeying together to visit ancient human outposts that were now thriving alien civilizations. It was a pilgrimage of reconciliation and renewal. In the ship's archives, carefully preserved, was the first message humanity had sent to the Confederation vessel that discovered them. Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you. Few had realized at the time how literally true those words had been. On some deep, unconscious level, humans had always known their destiny lay among the stars, not as newcomers, but as returning travelers on a journey that had begun millions of years in the past. As the ship entered the vast spaces between solar systems, Elder Suho stood in quiet meditation in his quarters. Through the genetic memories now fully accessible to him, he could feel the presence of countless ancestors who had traveled these same routes long ago. Their journey had come full circle. Humanity had fallen to rise again, forgotten to remember, ended to begin anew. The story of the elder species wasn't over. It was just entering its next chapter. The end.